There are some cases when it's only viable to create the molding manually. For example, when you have to conform it to a difficult object like this one, where the surface curves in multiple directions. And in these cases it's quite difficult to use any modifiers to distort your profile correctly, or you can't really conform a spline to this object and use the sweep modifier or bevel profile modifier, as they do not work correctly in these cases. And the easiest way you can conform a profile to a shape like this is by creating the profile manually. So let's say I have to conform a rectangle like this to this shape. Okay. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create the profile, but you have to keep in mind the profile has to be made in such a way that you can turbo smooth it to create your final profile. So let's say I have a profile like this. I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. Let's attach them together. Make sure it's a nice and closed profile. Alright. So the idea is to extrude this object, modify it to fit the shape, and then I'm going to make a copy, and then you turbo smooth it. As you can see, after turbo smoothing, the profile changes like this. And that's not exactly what we want. We want to keep all these corners sharp. So you have to add some support vertices by using the refine tool. So just two vertices, one on each side of your corner. The exact distance doesn't matter, but you can use it to control how rounded the corner is going to be after smoothing. So if you want it sharp, make these vertices pretty close to the corner. And now when you have these support vertices, as you can see, after smoothing, this round part is nice and smooth, but the corners are pretty sharp. And you can modify the vertices to make sure the shape is exactly as you want it to be. Okay. So that's that. Let's get rid of this turbo smooth. And let's try to conform this profile to the shape. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make sure the profile is the correct size. So I think something like this might be appropriate. Then I'm gonna rotate it to face the surface. And I'm gonna create a corner right here by extending the vertices past the corner line and then adding a symmetry modifier. And it's easy to create a corner just by rotating the modifier like this, 45 degrees, and you have a corner. Right. And once that's done, you can collapse to editable poly. And since this object is pretty symmetrical, we can just create 1/4 of it and use the symmetry modifiers to create the rest, but it's going to be enough to demonstrate the general principles. Okay, so I'm going to start with the highest point, which is probably around here. Then I'm going to select these parts and move them inwards like this. All right. Rotate to fit. And this one should be rotated inwards. And this one as well. And this should rotate like this. Okay. And you can add more segments by using the slice plane tool. Okay, where was it? Okay, I'm going to show you two methods. So the first one is going to be adding more segments. So just slice in some additional edge loops, bring them out, and fit to the surface. Okay, like this. And the second method is, okay, I'm just going to get rid of this thing, and the second method is delete everything beyond the endpoint and manually extrude like this. And I just extrude, and maybe I'm going to straighten it out a bit by using the FFD 2x2. Add another poly. And fit to the shape. And go forward until you meet the midpoint. Okay, it's like it's a bit too flat from the FFD 2x2. So make sure you're careful when distorting it. You can add some segments by using the connect tool as well. So there are multiple options you can use. Okay. And I'm gonna extend it just past the center line. And same for this one here. Right, and now throw on some symmetry modifiers. Make sure the symmetry axis is in the correct position. All right. And then you want to add the Turbo Smooth modifier. Okay, the profile is pretty good except for the corners. And to fix the corners, we have to select this edge loop. Okay, looks like something's a bit wrong. I'm just gonna get rid of those corner vertices and add them again. So, okay, so first the corner, let's chamfer it just a little bit, increase the segments to 2, and the corner is fine. And now let's add back those corners we just lost. It's easy to do afterwards if your profile doesn't have them. You can just loop the edges. It's really not a big problem. So just loop them and extrude them. Set the height to 0 and increase the width to offset them from the original corner. Okay. And that's the profile. It's like there are some tiny problems with the symmetry. Okay. So you might want to play with the threshold value if you have something like this. This happens because some of the vertices are too close together, and the symmetry modifier decides it wants to weld them together, and we don't want that, so set the threshold lower so it doesn't weld them. And you can see the profile is conformed to the surface pretty well, except maybe for this part. And you can fine-tune it if you wish, but that's the basic idea. So it is a bit of work, but sometimes it's the only way to create something like that.